Yeah, good morning, students, or good day to you all. I'm going to be teaching you how to solve related questions as far as manufacturing account is concerned. And then before today or before this week, we talked about the costs of production classification in manufacturing accounts. There we said that cost of production is subdivided into two parts, where you have the prime cost of production and the factory cost of production, and in which to get the prime cost of production you need to add three costs together, where you are going to add the direct material costs, which is otherwise known as the cost of raw materials consumed. You add it with the direct expenses such as royalties and others, and then you add it to the direct labor costs. So these three costs, direct material costs, direct labor costs, and direct expenses, are to be added together to make up your prime cost of production. And thereafter you then add your factory cost of production. When you add this factory cost of production with your prime cost of production, you will get what we call total factory cost of production, or what we call total manufacturing costs. Then that is that. So, and before we proceed, you should know that there are three inventories in manufacturing accounts. Three inventories, three stocks in manufacturing accounts, where you have the stock of raw materials, stock of finished goods, and the stock of work in progress. The work in progress is represents the uncompleted or incomplete stock, or stock not yet called if finished goods. So that is that. And then coming to this place where you have when we get to the format. So here you have the work in progress. I've taught you all this here. So let's proceed straight away to the format. And in the format, you can see that we have the debit and the credit side. Then you have the 2 Naira columns on the debit side. I'm going to tell you the reason why you need to add 2 Naira columns later. You have the name of the manufacturer, the title of the worth of the account, manufacturing, trading and profit and loss account for the year ended 31st December 1981. So you always start with the opening stock of raw materials. Opening stock of raw materials, and then the next one is what? The purchases of raw materials. Then purchases of raw materials. Now look at this very well. If the purchases of raw materials is if you don't have carriage inwards on raw materials, and you are given only the purchase of raw materials, that means this amount of purchase of raw materials will come under the opening stock of raw materials, which will be added together. So that means there won't be 2 columns for Naira sign, but there will only be 1 column for Naira if there is no carriage inwards on raw materials. But since we have carriage inwards on raw materials in this format, so you need to add it together with the purchases of raw materials to get the total cost of purchases of raw materials. And when you do that, you will now what subtract what your returns outwards from the total cost of raw materials if the returns outwards of raw materials is given in a question. So when you subtract it, you get what your net purchases of raw materials, and your net purchases will be transferred to the column where you have what your opening stock of raw materials, which the two will be added together to give you cost of raw materials available, which will be available to be used in the organization. And then you look for the closing stock of raw materials. So the closing stock of raw materials will always be subtracted from the cost of raw materials available. And then when you subtract this from the cost of raw materials available, then you will get your what we call cost of raw materials consumed or used. And then you then add you look for the direct wages or factory wages, royalties, direct expenses, direct or factory labor. All these will be added together. Now, don't be confused. Anytime you see the word direct wages, anytime you see the word direct wages, is going to come under this section. Don't put it under factory overheads, except if it is stated clearly that factory indirect wages. But if it is silent that factory wages, it will be treated as if it is a direct wages. But if it is specifically stated that factory indirect wages or simply indirect wages, that will come under factory overhead expenses. So since we have direct or factory wages, so you put it under this section and you add up your cost of raw materials together with all the direct labor costs and direct expenses. If they are given, you add them together, and that will give you what we call prime cost of production. But note once again, one of these four items under this ad, direct wages, royalties, direct expenses, direct labor, one or more of them must be given in a question in order to get you what your prime cost of production. I have not seen any question where when we get what to the prime to the cost of raw materials consumed, and the next thing to write is the factory overheads. No, we always add something to the cost of raw materials consumed to get us the prime cost of production. That is that. So remember, in the manufacturing accounts, or your most of your workings will come on the debit side. So later we'll talk about the credit side. So when you add up all these together, then you get all your factory overheads. Add up all your factory overheads. But something that is exclusive about factory overheads expenses is that you have all the factory expenses will come over here. We all know indirect or factory expenses will come over here. But when it comes to the depreciation, we may have depreciation of office equipment, or depreciation of plant and machinery, or depreciation of motor van, or depreciation of building, or depreciation of this or that. But one thing that will come into this factory overhead is depreciation of plant and machinery. Nothing else will come in here. So it's going to be depreciation of plant and machinery that will come on the factory overhead expenses. But any other depreciation will go to the debit side of the profit and loss account of the same account of the same manufacturing organization. So then when you add your prime cost of production with your factory overhead, with your total factory overhead expenses, when you add these two together, you get what we call total manufacturing cost. So adding your work in progress at the beginning, or what we call opening stock of work in progress, when you add it to the total manufacturing cost, you will get a figure here, and from there you subtract your work in progress at the end from it, and you'll be able to get what we call your cost of production, or better still, cost of goods manufactured. So the cost of goods manufactured, then when you get it here, so you transfer the same figure that you have here, you put it on the credit side of the manufacturing account as CD, that is cost of goods manufactured or produced CD. So that CD will be brought to this side. Also, you get the total, you do the balancing together. So the one thing is that whatever you get here is what will come over to this place, is the same figure that will come over to this place, and at the same time the same figure that will come to the trading profit and loss account, trading accounts on the debit side, and which is to be added to the opening stock of finished goods, which is to be added to the opening stock of finished goods. So when you add these two together, you get your cost of finished goods available for sale. When you see what's the closing stock of finished goods, you subtract it. You subtract the cost and the closing stock of finished goods from the cost of finished goods available for sale, and that will give you cost of goods sold. These cost of goods sold will be compared with your sales that is already on the credit side of the trading account. And then when you compare the two together, when you see that your sales is greater than that is greater than cost of goods sold, then you will get what we call gross profit CD. So when you get your gross profit CD, then you transfer your gross profit CD to the credit side of the profit and loss account as gross profit BD. So look for other expenses, then other incomes, and add the incomes together with your gross profit BD to get what we call your total income. Then all your expenses given to you, that is all the office expenses, all the expenses that are not related to the factory, that are not related to manufacturing, that are not related to production, they are going to appear under this heading: selling, distribution, and administrative expenses. All these, as I said before, the depreciation of plant and machinery will appear in the manufacturing account under the factory overheads, and while depreciation of other fixed assets will appear in the profit and loss account on the debit side. So when you add up all this together, then you get your total expenses. Compare total expenses with your total income. If your total income, let's say, is greater than the total expenses, then the balancing figure will be on the debit side, and that balancing figure will be called net profit. So that is that for the format. So now let's go straight to the question proper. This is a question. This is was November 2005. There's a question on that. So the name of the organization. Let's start with the first question. I'm going to say list 3 categories of inventories to a manufacturing concern. A manufacturing concern is a manufacturing organization, and the three the three categories of inventories, they are the stock of finished goods, stock of work in progress, and the stock of raw materials. These are the three inventories to a manufacturing concern. Now let's begin the calculation part of it. Let's say the following balances were extracted from the books of Evans Manufacturing Enterprises for the year ended 31st December 2003. You have the stock, as you can see. We are given three stocks here as our opening stock. The opening stock of raw materials, the opening stock of work in progress, the opening stock of finished goods. Then thereafter, we are given what? The closing stock. The closing stock of raw materials, the closing stock of work in progress, and the closing stock of finished goods. And these are the items that are needed to be put in the manufacturing trading profit and loss account. And you are required to prepare manufacturing, trading, and profit and loss accounts for the year ended 31st December 2003. So now let's begin. Now to begin this, I have already drawn my format. The format, the table I need to use to put in all the figures, all the necessary figures. So to solve this question is very easy to do. So first and foremost, we need to look for the opening stock of raw materials. The opening stock of raw materials is 7,000 naira. So I'll begin with that. Stock of raw materials is 7,000 naira. So before we know whether we are going to put it on the first column or the second column, I think we'll go ahead and put it there. I think that should be that is when we are dealing with purchases. So 7,000 naira. Next, purchases of raw materials. Now, before we put the purchases of raw materials, whether it's going to be here or it's going to be here, so let's check the question and see if there is carriage inwards of raw materials. Carriage inwards, you can see carriage inwards, but it's not on raw materials. Once it is like this, definitely you should treat this to be on finished goods. So then let's check through. So let's proceed. Okay, this carriage inwards supposed to be on raw materials. So we'll copy that. Carriage inwards on raw materials. Since we have that, then our purchases 80,000 is going to be on the first column. 80,000 there. Carriage inwards on raw materials. That is 85,600 naira. That will give us 85,600 naira. This will represent total cost of purchase of raw materials. $5,600. Good. The next is there any returns inwards on raw materials? No. Good. Then if there is no returns inwards of raw materials, there's no returns of raw materials, so transfer this figure to the side. $85,600. So you add the 85,600 with 7,000 naira, and that will give you 92,600 naira. So that will be called cost of raw materials available. That will be 92,600. The next is to look for your closing stock. Your closing stock of raw materials should be down, and that is 8,000 naira. Closing stock of raw materials we'll put it in bracket because we are subtracting it from the cost of raw materials available, 8,000 naira. And that will give us cost of raw materials consumed. So we'll get the difference. That will give us 84,600 naira. That's cost of raw materials consumed. Let me go over it again. We have the opening stock, get the opening stock. Here we have the purchases of raw materials. That's 80,000 given in the question. And the reason why we are putting it here is because we are giving carriage inwards on raw materials, which is 5,600 naira. Then you add the two together to get what we call the total cost of purchases of raw materials, and that gives us 85,600 naira. This 85,600 naira will be transferred to the column where you have the opening stock of raw materials to be added to the opening stock of raw materials, and which will give us 92,600 naira, representing the cost of raw materials available. And then you look for the closing stock of raw materials given in the question. You subtract the 8,000 naira from the 92,600 naira to get you what 84,600 naira, representing the cost of raw materials consumed. Then immediately after this is to look for what we are going to add to this raw cost of raw materials consumed to get us the prime cost. So let's check. Now what we are going to add is that here we have we are going to look for the direct expenses and direct labor. Anything that has to do with what with direct labor, that is manufacturing wages, direct wages, factory direct wages, all these are under direct labor. And anything that has to do with what royalties or direct expenses, then all these will be added also to it. So now let's check the sales, carriage, factory power, manufacturing wages, yes. Direct expenses, yes. That's good. Though, so that means the these two items, manufacturing wages 15,000 naira, will come over here. We'll say add manufacturing wages. That's 15,000 naira. Direct expenses, that's 2,140 naira. Good. Next is to add these three figures together: 84,600 naira plus 15,000 plus 2,140. That will give us prime cost. $101,740. So that's the prime cost of production. So the next thing is to list your factory overheads. So let's begin with the first one in the question. Okay. Carriage at all is not. So factory power, that's how much? 7,200. Factory power. $7,200. Let's try to close this side. That is, we don't need, since we have transferred this figure to this other side, so we need to close it so that when we are adding our factory overheads expenses together, we won't assume that this 85,600 is to be added to the factory expense or overhead expenses. So that's why we need to close this one, since we have moved the figure to the other side. Now next, after the factory overhead, after the factory power, next is to lubricants. Yes, we use lubricants in the factory. So you will add lubricants to it, though there is no factory lubricant. Can you see that there's not like factory lubricant? So, but lubricants will be used. Is usually using what's in the factory. So that means the lubricant is going towards the factory overheads under the manufacturing account, and the amount is 6,000 naira. Naira. Next is to check the factory salaries. As you can see, 5,200 naira. Factory salary. $5,200. Next is to check the factory lighting. Factory lighting. That's how much? 1,330 naira. Next is to see, okay, office factory rents and rates. Factory rents and rates, that is 1,300 naira. Next, depreciation. We have two depreciation here: depreciation of machinery and depreciation of motor vans. So the depreciation of machinery will be in the factory overhead. So that is how much? 3,000 naira. Naira. Let's check again. Is there any other thing? No, we don't have any other thing again. So you'll come over here, add from 7,200 naira. 7,000. That will give us 24,030 naira. That represents our total factory overheads. 24,030 naira. Good. So this figure will be transferred to this other side. So we'll need to close this. $24,030. We'll bring this here. So when you add it two together, had the 101,714 naira with 24,013 naira. You will get 125,770 naira, and that will represent our total manufacturing costs. 125,770, and that is the cost before we adjust. We take into adjustment the opening and the closing stock of work in progress. So that is the total cost of total manufacturing cost. So next, after this, you then add the work in progress. At the beginning, in the question, the work in progress is 4,000 naira. Naira. So add that plus 4,000. That will give us 129,000. 770 naira. Next is for us to less it, or better still, we can even remove this add, since we know that we are adding. So because of the space, okay, come to this, you have a work in progress. End, put it in brackets, and the figure is work in progress 3,200 naira. $3,200, so we get the difference, and that would be the cost of goods produced or manufactured. Cost of goods produced minus 3,200. $126,570. This final figure would be in double lines to show the total. Now, immediately after this, you can see all what we are doing, they are all on the debit side of the manufacturing account. So since we have gotten our cost of goods produced, so you write the same cost of goods produced here. goods produced. Produce CD. And that is no. This is one mistake is here. So it's going to be 126,570. Very good. Now, this 126,570, you bring it down to this place. On the same side where you have this one, you can see on the same side. So, I'll move it. Okay, so that is the end of one account, that is manufacturing account. So we'll begin with what, with the trading account. So as you can see, the figure that we have here is the same figure that is here. That is the cost of goods produced. Is the same thing here, the same thing here. So next is to prepare the trading account, and the trading account we usually start with the opening stock. So we'll start with the opening stock of finished goods. Yeah. Let's check how much the opening stock of finished goods. That's 5,000 there. So then immediately after this, see what is here is cost of goods produced, CD, is on the credit side here. So we'll apply the double entry, the principle of the double entry system, which states for every credit entry there must be a corresponding debit entry. So what is on the credit side here in the manufacturing account as CD will be written here as cost of goods produced, BD. And that amount is 126,570. So we'll add the two together. 5,000 plus 126,000. 570. That will give us cost of finished goods available. Available for sale. That's 131,570. Good. Let's check the items. Okay. Here we need to look for the closing stock of finished goods. The closing stock of finished goods is 4,420 naira. Let's check again. 4,420, and that would be in brackets. We need to subtract that. Minus 4420. That will give me 127,150 naira. So this will represent our cost of finished goods sold. $127,150 naira. Okay, that is the cost of finished goods sold. Then for the trading accounts on this side, temporarily we are done. So next is to go to the credit side and write our sales of finished goods, and the sales given in the question as 200,000 naira. Now, as you can see, we don't have any returns of finished goods at all. So next is to compare the two sides. The sales is 200,000 and the cost of finished goods sold is 127,150, 127,150 naira, and that means the sales is greater than the cost of finished goods sold. So that means we will get what our gross profit, and our gross profit is going to be on the same side where you have the cost of finished goods sold. Gross profit CD. Let's get the difference. -2. That will give us 72,850. 72,850. So we get the total. because the total is going to be double lines. It's going to be in double lines. Yeah. So that is the end of the trading account. So the next here is to bring down this gross profit CD to the credit side of the profit and loss account. So we want to start the profit and loss account. So we're going to start with it. We're going to start it with gross profits BD. And that is 72,000. 850. Good. So next is to come over here to write operational expenses. Expenses. So we'll add up all the expenses together. Now let's start from the beginning to check the expenses. No, stock is not sales, purchases, carried inwards. No, carried outwards. So the first one we're going to write here is going to be carried outwards, which is 3,114 naira. Next is to look for, okay, no, we have used this carriage and factory power, direct manufacturing wages, direct expenses. The next one is what general expenses, so that is what 1,700 naira. $1,700. Next, after the general expenses, you have the lubricants, no, factory salaries, no, there is no, sales men salaries, and that amount is 1,450 naira. $1,450. Next is to, okay, we have the office rent, and that is 1,590. 1,590. Good. Next is office insurance, and that is 1,600 naira. $1,600. Next is depreciation of motor van, 2,000 naira. That is how much again? That's 2,000 naira. Next, we have discount allowed as 1,030 naira, and that will be on the debit side of the profit and loss account. So 1,030 naira. Next is discount received, and that will be on the credit side of the profit and loss account. Discount received. That's how much once again? 220 naira. 220. Good. So let's get the total here. Total income, $72,850 plus 220. That will give us 73,070 naira. Okay. Come to this list. Let's get the total here too. The total will be total expenses, and that total expenses we will need to add up 3,140 naira with 1,700 naira with 1,450 with 1,590 with 1,600 with 2,000 naira with 1,030 naira. That will give us 12,510 naira. Good. Now, if you compare these total expenses and the total income together, you see that the total income is greater than the total expenses, and that will fetch Evans Manufacturing Enterprises in net profits. So we'll get net profit here. Get the difference, 73,000. That will give us 60,056 naira. 60,556 naira. 50,560 naira. 560 naira. That's the correct pronunciation. So 60,560 naira. So that's our net profit. So let's write the total. Total, you need to put double lines. So that will be the end of the question. As you can see from here, from the opening stock to the cost of goods produced, that is manufacturing accounts. From the opening stock of finished goods to where you have the gross profit CD, that is trading accounts, and from the operational expenses down to where you have your net profits, that is what profit and loss accounts. That is the end of the accounts of the solution of the question we just finished. So if there is any question, post it in the description below, and then I'm going to give you the assignment later. I'll post it where you know where we do post it. Okay. Good day.